What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Living Blessed, the podcast. I'm your host, Jovan J. Palmer, and as always, we have stories of people just sharing their vulnerable moments and things and how they've gone through these things and how you too can get through what they've experienced. And if you've experienced what they experienced, you too can do it too. So I have a friend on the line, not online, but here at the podcast, should I say. Miss Shenique, how you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, of course.
Good. So you recently went through the podcast challenge, right?
Yes, I did.
You did. How you enjoy it?
I'm going through the process. Okay. But I have a 2-year-old, so she just started school. Mm-hmm. She had her first week of school, got sick, so now we're back on track.
Back on it. Okay.
So yeah.
Gotcha. So
I'm excited.
Gotcha. So I reached out since I saw a bunch of new podcasts coming out. So this is an opportunity to kind of get some more people to my podcast and see who. Since I've been kind of watching doing Dave's podcast and also doing my own podcast, but it's an opportunity for individuals kind of like start talking more who don't talk much and or who want to share their story, kind of help, kind of like start their podcast and get going on. So I was like, this is a perfect opportunity. And you reached out, and we had talked in Messenger, and you told me a little bit. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I want to hear more. So let's get into it. I know you're on a time crunch right now, so let's get into it. Let's start about who you are first. Introduce yourself to the people, and let's get into it.
So my name is Shenique Luke. I am a love preparation coach.
A love preparation coach?
Yes. So I help women who desire marriage prepare and position themselves for a God-designed marriage. And so why I'm here is kind of how I got to where I am. So I'm currently married, been married 3 years, have a 2-year-old. But I was the queen of situationships. So I always got into these long-term committed relationships with no commitment. Well, long-term relationships with no commitment. Yeah. Doing everything a wife would do with no commitment. And so I actually wrote a book in 2017, Sleeping Sound and Single. And Sleeping Sound and Single. Because most of the time we're not sleeping well at night because we desire marriage so much. So my goal was to show women that you can desire marriage and still have peace during that single season. It's not a punishment. And so when I wrote the book, it was kind of my testimony, getting to a healthy relationship, getting commitment, trusting God. Yeah. And when I wrote the book, I got such a huge response from other women saying, I'm kind of going through the same thing. So I said, okay, well, let me take this a step further. Okay. So, yeah.
So you took a step further and you wrote the book.
Well, I'm in coaching now. Pursuing,
So from the book turned into coaching.
Yep, because I was coaching everybody after I wrote the book. So I said, you know what? Let me learn how to do this professionally.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you said that you were the queen of situationships.
Yes.
Let's go back to the queen. Well, before we go there, let's go back to childhood.
Okay.
So you're from where?
I was born in the Bahamas, but I was raised...
You're Bahamian,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. Raised in Decatur, Georgia.
Gotcha. So how did you go from Bahamas to Decatur?
So my mom came to Georgia to pursue education. She went to Georgia State, and then eventually my sister and I came here with her.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So what was it like growing up in Decatur?
I mean, it's popping. No, it's greater in Decatur. But no, I mean, I live in a single parent household. My dad lived in Florida. Okay. So I think to kind of answer where you're going, I didn't have the example of a healthy relationship. You know, so my parents fight a lot. Didn't really know what success looked like in. I mean, not even marriage, just a relationship. Gotcha. So, grew up in Decatur, went to Kennesaw State, and, I had some time at West Georgia. Okay. Flunked out, came home. And then, got myself together. Okay. And then graduated from Kennesaw State. So, I mean, most of my life has been here in Georgia. So, being kind of raised to desire marriage, like Southern, conservative, just always wanting to be married and have a family. But it was just getting really hard for me. I think my first relationship was like a year. I was like in the 7th grade. Like who does that, right?
We don't count those.
But I'm just saying, like I've always
been
in these long-term relationships forever.
So every relationship that you've had since 7th grade has been a year or longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? Wow.
So it's like I've always been a girlfriend girl. So dating, I didn't know how to date. I would always I pursued my relationships with the hopes that I would become married. Wow. I thought I would, be with the person I was with in high school. Like that was always my mindset, right? So I think my biggest issue was not knowing how to date, and then not really knowing what a healthy. My first, I always dealt with infidelity, accepted it, and so that was just a way of life for me.
Yeah.
So
So that was a way of life for you. So what started this for you? Like, what was something that you said, this has kind of got me on the path of this type of lifestyle or life, should I say?
I think it was just my desire to be loved. I just wanted to be loved. That was the goal. I wanted to be married. I think I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, man, that whole ride or die thing, like I thought
that was like a real thing.
Like love is pain, ride or die. Like you take so many things with you that are really unhealthy characteristics, but you assume that this is the woes of love, but it's really not healthy.
Right.
And then you accept it, and then infidelity was kind of a thing. My high school relationship, like I have like these 4 major relationships: high school, college, post-college, and then adult, adult.
Okay.
And so high school kind of set the tone for infidelity. And then when I went into college, that relationship was just really toxic. And continuous infidelity. There were a lot of women, And so when I got into this particular relationship that we're going to talk about, it didn't look like
the same thing.
No, it was really healthy. Never dealt with, college was crazy.
Yeah.
You got drive-bys, you got
drive-by what?
Like looking for who's at his house. You had other women calling. Like it was like habitual crazy. It was,
So what made you stay in situations like that?
He was really romantic.
The college guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in high school, you don't really get to that extreme of
it's more so
it's just what your mama said you can do, right? And so he was really romantic, handsome. Like it was just, everything I thought I wanted. And nothing against him, right? Because I've come to peace with just where I was as a person.
Yeah.
I had my ways too. And I don't think I just knew what it should have looked like. So I think we did love each other. I don't think we just knew how to love each other. You know what I mean? So when I went into the post-college relationship, it was, I didn't have to deal with other women. I felt like he was responsible, like he had a good job, like, what I mean? It was all the things.
If there were boxes, they were being checked.
Right, and I think I was able to identify at that point what I didn't want because of all the infidelity from the prior relationship, that he was a good guy, like straight up. Like I just didn't deal with the things that I dealt with in that relationship.
Right.
But that was kind of the start of the big situationship, because we did everything but be committed. Because even for a while we never had a title. But I was like, I met him when I was 24. I was like, it's cool. He's doing what I need him to do. He respects me. I don't have to deal with women knocking at the door or random phone calls or all that drama. So it was good, So we stayed together for about 4 years, maybe 4.5.
Now, these 4 years, are y'all committed or just y'all just really just in this?
So like we're in the situationship, but for me, I'm committed because he's doing everything. Like I don't, like I mean, we even lived together at one point. I'm talking about parents, his parents, like.
Y'all, it's a thing. It's not a thing.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Because even there were times, like looking back, it was very clear. Like even he would kind of step away from it and then come back, But I think I was used to that part, thinking, like I said, the woes of relationships. But I think it was clear. Especially without the title.
Yeah.
Because that was the biggest thing. But I mean, I was like, oh, it's cool, whatever. And I never wanted to rock the boat. So that was another thing that I identified about myself. I did not I'm still non-confrontational, but now I just know how to address things.
Yeah.
But before, so the relationship in college was so volatile. Because we would argue, we would fight, and so here I am trying to do better, not wanting those same type of habits to occur.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I just won't say anything. So, but I would still be like, wait, am I lying? No, I don't think at that point, I knew I wanted to be married. So when marriage would come up, it would be, I don't want that. Or, what? I don't even remember if I ever asked that question, like, what are we? But I feel like I did put that pressure to be like, where's this going?
Yeah.
So I remember around like year 3, I was like, I think we should get engaged. And he was just like, no, I don't want to do that. So I'm like, okay. But still kind of pressing on with it because it was safe.
Yeah.
It wasn't you literally went from 100 to 0 on the drama scale. So I always say he was a good guy, but he just wasn't good for me. Because he didn't do all the extra stuff, but he didn't commit either. So, I just think that I just kind of stayed, it was safe.
Yeah.
I just sat in it because I really thought we were going to get married. So I was like, okay, he doesn't want it now. But I think we had a conversation. And I think he made it clear, I don't want to get married. And so not getting married was never an option. So not having a title was cool. We were doing all the things, so it was like, okay, this works, but not getting married. And I think at that point he made it clear. So I was like, okay. And we did the back and forth because it was hard for me to really let go. I found, this was maybe, I think this was before my husband and I got married, and I found this old letter. I was begging him to just be with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it was I was cringing reading that. Oh gosh, Shenique.
So did he never get the letter because you had it?
No, yeah, I never gave it.
So more like a journal type of
I know it was a letter. Maybe I changed my mind or something.
Okay.
But it was letter,
So let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
So I know you mentioned earlier that you lived in Georgia and your dad lived in Florida. What was the relationship like between you and your dad?
It wasn't healthy for a long time. I feel like I chased men the way I chased my dad.
Okay.
Because
elaborate on that a little bit.
So my mom and my dad, I remember them fighting a lot, but my mom really just trying to make sure I was taken care of. And my dad, now looking at it, I think they were just trying to protect themselves. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But so my mom was 25 when she had me. My dad is 3 years older than my mom, so 25 and 28. So my dad is married now.
Okay.
So I think for a long time I was just angry because I wanted my parents to be together.
Yeah.
But I love my stepmom. Like, she's the bomb. So even I remember wanting to hate her, but I couldn't. You know what I mean? Like the evil.
She's so sweet,
just
right? Yeah.
But she was so like so cool, and so I just remember them fighting a lot. But my mom never said anything bad about him. I just remember her saying like one day, you know, or when we had conversations later on, like one day she's gonna see for herself.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk bad about him, but I just felt like he never was. I had access to him, but he wasn't like present in my life.
Gotcha.
So when I was younger, it was just not good, you know, just not consistent. But as I got older, like I remember probably around 21, I started reaching out more because I have 2 brothers.
Gotcha.
And so I wanted to have a relationship with them despite the back and forth with my dad, and you know, because it just wasn't healthy. But like now we're good. I have my daughter, so that was something I prayed on for a long time.
Gotcha.
And but it just wasn't. It wasn't good. Like I didn't have a good image of my father for a long time, and I don't think until I really got into understanding relationships that I really fully forgave him for just not being there.
Okay.
And I don't know. You know, you hear his side of the story, you hear my mom's side of the story. I'm just like, I think they're just like they probably wasn't they probably was best the way. They're alike, they're similar. But I just think it's, you know, defense mechanism.
For sure.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I definitely, when looking back, understanding who I am now, I pursue men because the same way because I would get mad at my dad. And then I go to church or talk to somebody and I'd be like, you know, I'm just going to forgive him. I'm just going to call him. And then I would call him. So it was like me always like reaching out. Dad, like, let's fix this. And then he would say something, hurt my feelings. And, you know, it would just be like, okay, I'm backing away again. So I feel like looking back, the same thing I did with my relationships.
How long were you having those feelings towards your dad?
I mean, I always wanted him there, but I think I saw like the way my mom responded. I don't believe that she just was trying to do her best.
For sure.
And I think it just came off as her being angry at him, or I just remember like the constant arguing on the phone type of thing. But yeah, it just like when I think back, it just negative. You know what I mean? I don't even remember them really ever. Like even when I graduated from college, he came, and it was like the tension was so thick. I don't ever think I've ever seen them at peace with each other together, or just in the same room. You know?
Right.
So, just even now, you know, looking at the relationship that I have with my daughter and my husband, I'm like, man, how horrible, like, what type of impact did that have on me growing up? Because I've never seen them like peacefully and nicely.
Yeah.
So, and I just think over the years it just kind of turned into something else, and you know, they did their best.
Gotcha. Now, fast forwarding back to the situationship with the guy for the 4 years. So now it's like you see the pattern. I guess you maybe didn't understand the patterns at the time of, you know, the dynamic of the relationship with your dad and the dynamic of the relationship with the guy that you're with. You know, for 4 years, was there any time in year 1, year 2, or year 3, even in year 3 and 4, like you said, you know, I gotta get out of this?
I always thought he was going to change his mind.
Okay. What made you think he was going to change his mind?
I just thought like if I showed up like a wife, you know, he was going to change his mind. He was going to want to like fully commit to this.
Yeah.
Because it was so, like even thinking about it now, I remember always asking about it, but then it's like there was no drama. So I think I equated not having to deal with other women and no drama with it being.
So it's like you finally found a peace in somebody.
Yeah, that's why I said he was a good guy, but he just wasn't for me. So it was like you're talking about coming from the prior relationship where you're having girls knocking at the door, you're having to go drive by his house to see if someone's at his house, or catching him with people, or hearing rumors. Like, it was constant to not dealing with that at all. So it was completely different. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is better.
Yeah.
You know, and not to mention, like, he just helped me professionally, like business-wise. Like, he helped me become more responsible. Like, he taught me kind of the game when it came to, like, how to maneuver with interviews and how to carry myself at work.
Yeah.
So I always had respect for him because I felt like I'm a better person because I'm with him. You know, I thought he was really smart, and I admired that about him. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm not dealing with the drama. I'm becoming better, so this has to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and not to mention I had the relationships with his family. Like, it felt like
this could be it.
Exactly. So I just held on to it, just thinking one day until, you know, it's funny because I'm sitting here talking about this, but I felt like there was a conversation that was had that marriage wasn't an option. I don't know if I just missed it, but I remember a specific, and maybe it was just growth in me, or maybe I just heard it that particular time, where it was like, yeah, I don't want to get married. And so I'm like, okay, not being your girlfriend is one thing, but I always thought, I always knew I wanted to get married.
Yeah.
So maybe I just heard it, that conversation, and I was like, okay, I need to walk away from this. And so I think we broke up, probably got back, but at one point moved out, and then we ended things, and we were apart for about a year. And then, now at this time I had met my husband, but my husband was kind of still doing, like, we were dealing with each other, but it wasn't serious. So then, I'll never forget January. I get a text like, hey, big head, been thinking about you. So I'm like, okay, so this is how it works. You leave, they come back, and then you live happily ever after, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. Now, at the time, I am dating my husband, but he's kind of on the same thing. Like, I don't want a relationship. So I'm like, okay. So I start to entertain my ex at the time, and he's like, you know, I've been thinking, and so we start talking more. And it's funny because the year we were apart, my relationship with Christ, like, it was really established. And so I really got to know who he was and, you know, who I was in him. And I remember, like, kind of feeling like, I don't know about this. But he was safe. Like, I knew him, there was comfort there, I knew his family. I'm like, okay, we can do this, you know. And so he started to kind of distance himself. And I'm like, I'm kind of used to this. This is what he does. But we were still dating, we were still talking. But I felt like he kind of came back with the idea that this is where we're gonna go. So we were planning a trip. And I'm like, okay. And then he was like, no, I can't do it. I'm like, okay. But we're still, I think at that point we were still communicating consistently. And then it just went like ghost. So I'm like, okay, what is this dude, like, here we go again. So at this point I'm confused, I'm frustrated, and I'm at work, I'm sitting at my desk, I think I had deleted his number, but I knew it by heart. So I just see the number pop up, and I'm like, oh, here he go. He's doing this again. What does he want?
Right.
Don't answer. Continue going to work. And then a voicemail pops up. So I'm like, he never leaves a voicemail. That's odd. And I pick up the phone, listen to the voicemail, and he's like, hey, like, I just wanted to let you know that I have a baby on the way and I'm getting married. And so, and I just wanted you to hear it from me before you heard it from anybody else. And so I'm like I remember sitting there like what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, what just happened? And I think I was in shock at that point. And so I hung up the phone and I went downstairs, because every time I would use the phone for a personal phone call, I would always just go downstairs in front of the office building. So I called my mom and my sister on three-way, my older sister, and I'm like, this is what just happened. So I'm not, like, I'm cool at this point.
Okay.
But they are going in. They like, I'm about to go over there. Like, we about to pull up. What's good? Oh, I can't believe him. And they just, and I'm like, okay. I still don't think at that point it had really set in what happened. And so I go back up to my desk thinking like, oh, this is cool. And then the tears just like, they're like, I can't control myself. So I go to my manager and I'm like, hey, I promise I'm not a drama queen. I promise I don't let my life interfere with my job. I can't do this. She's like, so she sees like I'm a wreck. She's like, just go. So, and just to give you context, I was working by Cumberland Mall, and I lived in Tucker, right off of Chamblee Tucker. So I take 285 to go home. Like, I remember this so vividly. And I remember at the time, like I'm boo-hooing.
The whole ride home.
Yeah. But at the time I remember this. Like, physically, my heart was broken. I was like in shambles. But something spiritually was like, are you good? And I remember at the time my pastor was talking about praising God in the midst of the storm. Yeah. And I was like, okay. I'm like boo-hoo crying. I'm on the phone with my sister. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Like boo-hoo. Like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And it felt so crazy. And I think that's really when I established like how to praise God, no matter what. And so I'm like, so I go home. I'm just sitting there, like, and my mom was like, I'm coming over. I think my mom thought I was gonna hurt myself.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And if you know my mom, you don't, but like, my mom is very talkative. And I think that was the first time she did not have anything to say. The apartment we lived in was like, the full connecting unit. And so when someone would come up, we would go in the back and let them in. But this time I just went out and I sat in the car with her. So she's like parked behind the building. So her car is running. And I don't think she knew what to say, because she knew, like, my expectations for the relationship. And I think at that point, I don't remember the time frame. She probably came after work. I probably left like midday. So it wasn't like immediately after I left that she came over. So I had been crying, that whole time. But by the time she got there, it was like there were no more tears left. And so literally it felt like dry. And I just sat there in the car, and my mom said, which I wish you knew her, because you would be like, your mama didn't say nothing. And so I just think she just thought I was gonna hurt myself. And I think she probably asked me like, are you gonna be okay? Like, the conversation was minimal. Yeah. I just told her like, I'm okay. Went back, and I think I just sat there, and I texted him congrats. That was like,
And that was it.
yeah. So then I reached out to a friend, a mutual friend, one of his good friends, his girlfriend, who I had become friends with. And I was like, did you know? She was like, yeah, I knew, but he asked me not to tell you. He wanted to tell you. And so I'm just like embarrassed. Like that was the first feeling. Like everybody knew except for me. And I like heartbroken, like devastated. Like I probably should have went to therapy. Like looking back. I just at that point I didn't think it was like I was gonna be able to recover.
Really? So what was going through you and at this moment? What's going through your mind at this moment? Now, how are you feeling?
Confused, like embarrassed. Like I remember just feeling really embarrassed because I don't think at that point I recognized that it was not his intention to be married and be with somebody else, but I just felt like, okay, it wasn't me, and I didn't see it, you know. And I remember just being hurt, like physically heartbroken. And you've heard stories about it, watched movies, but like putting that in, like feeling that.
So explain that feeling. I don't ever believe I've ever been like
pain. It's like pain in your chest.
How long is that pain sitting there?
It lasted for a while, but then it was like I couldn't. It lasted for a while, but like I said, there was a part of me as I'm going through this that knew that he wasn't the one, right? And I remember it was like God was stopping it. So I felt like God had put Mario, that's my husband, in my life for a reason, and I was really liking him. But here's this other guy who I'm like, well, I know him.
His safety is comfort.
Yeah, I'm like, well, knowing that wasn't the best situation for me, but like, I'm gonna entertain this. And like I said, I was dating both of them, so I was like, okay, let me just see if that works out, because he's not really committed at this point anyway. But then what happened was I kind of projected what happened in that relationship onto Mario and I. And I just became like super controlling because I was afraid that the same thing was going to happen. So here I'm dating him, and he's I don't want a relationship. So I'm like, why is this happening again? Like, what is it? Okay, so I'm going to control this situation the most that I can in order for it not to happen again, because no one's ever going to do that to me again. So I feel like there were two parts to it. Like, I really couldn't focus on it because I was dealing with Mario. But at the same time, it was like, still, how could he give this to this woman when I've been begging him for this? This was the one thing I wanted, right? So like, it was like, how is this happening? You know? So, I was gonna say, it was like God was stopping it. Like God knew that I had a respect for marriage, and I would never interfere. So all the other times, like him telling me, I don't want this, I don't want that, I'm like, nah. I'm gonna change your mind. But I wasn't going to interfere with that. So that was going to stop me from going back and forth with him. Because regardless of whatever happened or how heartbroken I was, I would never disrespect a marriage, you know? So I felt like God knew this is, I always compare it to, the Avengers, where the Hulk kind of throws his fist down on the concrete, and like everything just kind of comes up. It was like, God was like, no, this is not the direction I need you to go in. It was like that's what it felt like. And every time I think about driving down 285 that day, that image of like me driving and God stopping it. And honestly, it's nothing against him. I just feel like God had a purpose and a plan for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I was angry. I was really angry for a long time. Like, she took that away from me. She has my life. That's supposed to be mine. And what kind of got me through it was, of course, growing my relationship with Christ. But being able to identify that, I think it was the thought. Like, I always tell women about heartbreak, don't think about him being with her. Don't think about, I mean, all kinds of images come in our head when it comes to another woman, right? But I had to get really black and white about it.
Okay.
Like, he didn't want to be with you, and that's okay.
How did you get yourself to the point of it's okay?
I think it was just having trust that God had a purpose and a plan for me. And like, physically, even though it was painful, like, my heart and my spirit knew that, like, I trusted God to, that even though I'm going through this, there's a reason, it's gonna be okay. And then eventually I got to a place where I just recognized, like, okay, it's okay to acknowledge that you loved him, that that you did have a relationship. But like I said, I think that when I think about him, it's like he was a good guy, but he just wasn't good for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was really what got me through, because when I really began to dissect who he was, like, it didn't matter the situation. He was never, like, he was going to do what was right. Like, that was always him.
Yeah.
He would be completely uncomfortable in a situation, didn't want to do it, but he would do what was right. So regardless of whatever the situation, like, you're not gonna be with me and then have a you know, I'm like, it's like, no. I mean, I don't know the details of the situation. I don't know what it was about, because I tried to convince myself of so many things. Like, this is why this is happening.
Yeah.
She did this to him. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's like,
right.
it doesn't matter, because a man has a choice.
For sure.
So, and that was his choice. So it was like, I just had to accept it. But understanding that I, like, in the midst of the heartbreak, in the midst of the tears, I was like, okay, like, this isn't what God had for me. Like, I knew that. But physically, it was still hard to go through. Like, man.
So how long did it take you? I want to touch on 2 points, because you touched on two, like, very great things, which was, one was the acceptance, and then two, I want to ask, how long did it take you to kind of get over that guy that time? Because if your heart was in it for 3 to 4 years, and that's a long time to be with somebody, to consume somebody else's energy and their space, and know that person through and through, and to have to get over them and to see somebody else in your position. How was it getting, like, what were the steps that you did to get over it? Was it prayer? Was it journaling? What was it?
So I think you have to remember, we had broken up and we were already apart for a year. I think, like, that, a part of that had already been resolved through that time apart, right? So I feel like me entertaining us being back together was just like my level of, like, comfort and insecurities, and trying, like, moving into a new space with a new guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, so I feel like I knew I probably shouldn't have entertained it in the first place. But I was like, oh, okay, like, this, like, yeah.
Like, it's setting up.
Yeah. But definitely prayer. I remember I started to pray for them, like, as a couple.
That's a mature thing to do.
But that was the thing. I'm very aware, but I feel like I was developing at that time.
Yeah.
So I did things to, like, challenge, okay, the Bible says pray for your enemies.
Right.
And I think what really helped me was that I just acknowledged my care for him. Like, I couldn't say, like, it hurt, but I genuinely wanted the best for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I genuinely, like, when I got down to the root of it, I just began to identify, like, okay, like, you love this man. Why would you wish bad things on him because he's with someone else? You know what I mean? So it was like, once I was like, okay, this just did not work out. It's okay. It doesn't represent who you are. You learn from it. I think the biggest thing that I did was I just wasn't honest with myself throughout it, because I should have walked away from it a long time before.
Right.
And so that kind of helped me to just get to an accepting place. I remember probably a year later when I was just like, okay, this is okay. You know, I'm going to come out of this, and God is still going to give me the thing that I'm praying for, which was a loving, healthy relationship, not just any marriage, right? And I sent him an email, and I was like, I forgive you. And I think I told him, like, your daughter or your family is beautiful or something like that. Because I was like, I'm not going to allow this situation to change who I am or change what I desire. You know what I mean? Because it could have.
Yeah.
Like, it could have went so differently.
Well, for sure. You know, all the way.
Like,
old college, you could have came out.
Listen, and she was off the chain crazy, by the way. Thank God for change. But yeah, I could have handled it differently. But you know, that year was really when I started to, like, seek God. Yeah. When a situation happened, what does the Bible say? What does God say? How should I handle this? You know, and like really trying to live it. But I ain't gonna lie.
This is about 5-10% of you.
It was hard. It was hard. Yeah. And I was just so angry for so long. But so at this point, me and Mario and I are still kicking it. And I remember he said to me, like, I really like you, but like all this other stuff. Because that, they like, I have a type, okay, so they have a lot of similarities, but then here's another guy telling me I don't want to be in a relationship. So I'm like, okay, it's me. You know, even the guy from college, we went back and forth for so long. Yeah. You know, and it was like, okay, I am experiencing the same thing in 3 different relationships. It's me. Yeah. You know, really having to look at myself and say I'm the common denominator. And that was hard because I always pointed the finger at them. Okay, well, he cheated. He got married. He's having, you know, but here it is. I'm with Mario, and I'm like, okay, Lord, like, help me to, like, if this is the man that you have for me, help me to correct the things that I'm doing. Yeah. Because at this point, I realize it's me. And it was like, it was hard to accept that, because the one thing that people ask you when you're not married or, you know, coming up on your 30s, everybody's like, what's wrong with you? So here I am having to identify and acknowledge that there is something wrong with me, that there are some things that I need to change. And that was like really hard to do. Because, like I said, I was playing the blame game, you know, but there were things that, you know, I was doing that just wasn't conducive to a healthy relationship. Yeah. But I think the most hurtful part of the whole situation was that he didn't call me. Like, when I would think about it, I was like, dang, I couldn't get a conversation.
Did he reply to email or anything?
So he did reply to the email, but that was like a year later. So like the smoke was gone by then. Yeah, but I'm talking about like when it happened. Like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you deserve to have a phone call or something.
Like conversation. You can. And that was the thing. I was angry because I had so much respect for him. So I thought it was like
we're better than this.
Yeah, I thought it was a sucker move. Like, you can't call, you can leave it on a voicemail in the middle of the day. You know I'm at work. But, you know, so I think that was probably the biggest thing I had to forgive. I don't know why that makes sense. It wasn't like, because we weren't together technically.
Right.
But, like, I just felt like he could have handled it, like, a little better with the history. I think I was angry at that more than anything else. Because, like I said, out of anything, the one thing that I admired him. I had respect for him. Yeah. And then I just lost all of it just based on how he handled the situation. Gotcha. You know, but, you know, looking at things really black and white helped me to
truly just kind of see things for what they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have a coaching program that helps women
who are stuck in
situationships.
Yep.
Expound on that for me.
So it's just first helping them to identify who they are in Christ, because I think when I began to I always looked at God as a punishing, judgmental God. When I began to see him as a loving, like, father, everything changed. So then I was able to see myself differently, fall in love with who I was, accept all the things that I hated about myself. Then I was able to say, okay, this is more black and white. It's not a reflection of who I am. Correct. And I'm okay making adjustments. Yeah. Like, because I'm manipulative, that doesn't mean that I have to remain manipulative. I don't have to stay here. Exactly. I can change. And so helping them to identify and see God's love, helping them to develop self-love because of God's love, and then getting rid of the bad habits, and then creating the boundaries. So we have been taught a lot of wrong things about relationships. Like I said, like you watching your mom and your dad, they're just trying to survive. Or you're seeing someone get cheated on multiple times and you think, oh, okay, they've been together 10 years. That's cool. Right. Yeah. It works. But a lot of things that we're doing in order to just survive, we're taking them into our relationships and thinking, like, the social media thing, stalking and riding past past the house, and, doing all this crazy stuff to control. Getting rid of those habits, because we've been taught, like, we need to do those things in order to make it work. Right. Or, there's so many things that we do as women that are just unhealthy. Yeah. But we're carrying them into relationships and thinking, like, this is gonna work. It's like, no. And I mean, it's not just women, because of course that's what I always get. Well, why do you always focus? I'm coming from my perspective as a woman in my experience, right? So once they understand, okay, this habit that I'm doing is not good, let me rid myself of it. And then now I'm going to establish healthy boundaries, because that was the biggest thing for me. Yeah. I didn't have any boundaries. It was like, whatever he gave me, it was cool, because I just wanted to be loved so bad. Gotcha. So that's kind of how Sleeping Sound and Single came up, because the first title was Don't Be Afraid to Sleep Alone. Because what I recognized was sometimes we'll just have somebody physically there so that we're not alone. But it's no peace in it, no love. It's just someone there. Yeah. So understanding, like, how important it was to, like, singleness is not a curse. And being able to just rely and trust in God to know that he's going to provide a mate for you, in the right time. And now looking back, I'm like, I'm glad that Mario is my husband. Yeah. Like, some of the things in our relationships, it wouldn't have been able to be that way in that relationship. Right. I wouldn't be the woman I am today if he pushed me closer to Christ. I was the first man that I wanted to be better for. Because I was pointing the finger so much, I thought, it wasn't me. I was perfect. I was perfect. You know? So understanding like how to address my flaws, how to address my issues, and like be honest with myself. I don't think I would have been able to do that, or just experiencing that whole situation. It wouldn't make. I wouldn't be the woman I am today.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, it's like, so I just want to show other women.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't have to just settle for anyone. Like God has someone specific for you. And He'll give you all the desires of your heart, no matter how old you are. I got married when I was 37. You know, I had my first daughter when I was 37. Yeah, I'm 40. So it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we get caught up in these relationships thinking we're too old. I don't want to start all over. Like, I've been with him this long. I don't want to learn, like how you said, I don't want to learn the quirks and all these about somebody new. But God will put you in a position where you're just as comfortable. Like, one of the things that kept me there, you asked me this, I thought no one was going to make me feel the way He made me feel. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to leave because I don't, the other guy, I would try to date somebody, you know, the week he said I wasn't his girlfriend.
Right.
I would go date somebody and then it wouldn't feel the same. So I'm like, I can't do this. So I'll just stay here. It's just, you know. But, you know, I love my husband. Like, he is my best friend. And I truly believe that our relationship is because of Christ. Because I allowed Him to take control and, you know, trusted Him more than I trusted myself.
That's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's real. I appreciate you coming through to share that.
Yeah, it was nice.
It's better. It's even better.
Yeah.
Than hearing the messaging than to hear it in person.
Because you said, does it have any trauma? I'm like, yeah, I would consider it trauma.
That's
it was pretty traumatizing to me.
I mean, the whole thing from start to finish, even like, you know, the relationship between you and your dad to now the relationship between you and men at the time. Those are very traumatic experiences, because I think when people think traumatic experience, we think like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
But everyone's experience is always going to be different.
Yeah.
And your experience in your situationships and your experience with, you know, with your mom and dad, and your experience, you know, finding yourself and your experience in finding your husband, like, it all led to creating you into a whole individual.
Yeah. That
women can now look to who are in situationships, who are desiring marriage, because, you know, I've had friends who, like, you know, who had strong desires for marriage. You know, I believe we all want it.
Yeah.
It's just all the way that we show how we want it. And you show exactly, okay, you can go through the woes and the highs, the valleys, the peaks, and all that stuff, the mountaintops of relationships. But it's always when you identify with yourself and find your wholeness when you find the partner who's right for you.
Yeah.
And that's what your story exemplifies.
Yep. And
I appreciate that about your story, and I appreciate you sharing that.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to take a quick commercial break real quick.
Okay.
And then I want you to come back and leave a powerful message to women and men. Because I feel like you have a story for both men and women in the story. And that'll be you closing us out.
Okay.
So this episode is sponsored by the Embolden Institute. It's the institute that I host myself, where I send out daily. We start off with daily text messages where we text you motivational stuff to help you get over your traumatic situation. Like I said, everybody's situation is totally different. It doesn't have to be something life and death. It doesn't have to be something where you are in your hospital bed. Trauma happens no matter however it happens. It happens because we all go through it, and we all have to grow through something. So I want to help you through that growing process by texting you daily motivational, uplifting messages that you can help utilize and share to someone else. So text me at 404-476-6780. That's 404-476-6780. It's me who responds. No robots, no assistants. It's all me. We're talking. I'm coaching. We're doing all types of things. Close this out.
Okay. So I think what's most important is being self-aware. I have to know who I am before I demand anything else from someone else.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing that I always ask women, and this can apply to men as well, is understand what you want. You may not want marriage.
Right.
But if you just saw your mom and your dad and your grandparents, and you may assume This is what I need to do. Or even just the characteristics of your relationship. Like, make your own rules, right? Like, my thing is, you can honor God. If your husband prefers to cook, that's okay. You don't have to put things on to your relationship, or I should say your mate. But make your own rules to your relationship. You don't have to put things on yourself. I tried to do so many things based on other people in my life until I recognized what worked for Shenique.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to honor God in that, right? But what works best for our relationship? And it's no one else's business. So, becoming self-aware is the most important thing. What do you want? Like, truly, what do you want? Or, on the flip end, and I have other peers that we always talk about this, other coaches. If you don't want to be an auntie, stop saying it. Like, but you built up a defense mechanism because you're lying to yourself, because you don't want to say, I want to be married. I want to have kids. So now you're convincing yourself that you're going to be the rich, single auntie, and that's not what you want.
For sure.
So thoughts and the words that you speak become things. So if you don't want that life, don't speak it. So be understanding who you are and speaking the life that you want. I called Mario my husband way before he was my husband. You know what I mean? I declared things. So let me tell you, I'm telling you this before we go. I put him on my vision board. Like, I was calling him my husband first in my declaration. So our pastor, around the time that Mario and I was really making the decision, I want him to be my husband. And there was nothing in the Bible that said I couldn't declare that he wasn't anybody else's husband. So I had full right to him. So I started, and at first it felt really crazy. So that's another thing. It's going to feel crazy when you start to declare things over your life that you don't see. So I remember, like, before it would say, like, I am married and I love my husband. And then I said, Mario is my husband. I remember that night, like, this feels crazy.
Yeah.
But I started to declare that he was my husband. And I put a picture of him up on my vision board. It was a picture of us, and it had like a little bride and groom. So I would take the vision board down when he came over, and one day I forgot to take it down. And so he came in, he saw himself on the vision board, and he was like, and so, I mean, now it's laughable, but it was like, is that, I'm sorry, it's my vision, sorry, but it was funny because I'm like,
nice.
Oopsie. But yeah, but that's how strong you have to be. I think we're just passive about the things that we desire in life. We don't understand our authority, that we can call a thing that be not, and it will become reality. Yeah. And that's what I did. And I just want to teach other women that they can genuinely, truly live the life that they're praying for. It don't have to just be a prayer. And every time I look at my husband and my daughter, I'm reminded, like, they only exist because I got God involved. Because when I was trying to do it on my own, it was a hot mess. Yeah, for sure. But so becoming self-aware and speaking the life that you want, getting God involved.
I love it.
So yeah, I don't know if that was as powerful as you want.
That was good.
But it's it has changed my life.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Like, just hearing the story and kind of like hearing the journey that you went through, I can tell, like, the things in the being that helped change you. And I'm appreciative of that because it shows other people, like, you can declare what you want. You can say, okay, I don't have to be just a rich auntie. I don't have to be passive. I don't have to be, faking.
In a dead-end relationship.
Yeah, in dead-end relationships over and over. I can take some time apart and I can really get clarity on what I really want.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. We out, y'all. It gets no better than that, of course. We out. Peace.
Bye.